Title: Ethan Stand. The courtroom was silent. Not the kind of silence that comes with peace, but the kind that feels like the edge of a cliff, tight with anticipation, vibrating with tension. The air was thick and still, as though even the molecules had frozen in place, holding their breath. Every creak of wood, every shuffle of paper, every nervous cough echoed like a thunderclap through the chamber. All eyes were on the child. In the witness box stood a 7-year-old boy, small for his age, his hands gripping the wooden railing as if it were the only thing keeping him upright. His knuckles were white. His shoulders were hunched forward under the weight of something no child should carry. His name was Ethan Kincaid. The judge, a composed woman in her 60s with soft gray curls tucked into a neat bun, leaned slightly forward, her voice gentle but steady. "Do you understand why you're here today, Ethan?" Ethan nodded. His lips parted slightly, quivering. He glanced down at the polished wood beneath his fingers, then up again. Slowly, as if some force inside him took over, he raised a trembling hand. His index finger pointed directly at the man sitting in the front row, a uniformed police officer. The man's jaw tensed. His eyes locked with the boy's. The chair beneath him scraped the floor as he shifted, tension rolling off him in waves. "It's him," Ethan said. His voice was barely more than a whisper. "He's the one who hurt my mom." A collective gasp surged through the courtroom like a rising tide. Murmurs erupted. Some people turned to one another in shock, while others simply froze in place, stunned. The officer stood abruptly, fist clenched, a flush creeping up his neck. The judge slammed her gavel down. "Order. Order in the court." But the moment could not be undone. Ethan's words had pierced through every layer of doubt and decorum. They'd struck the heart of the courtroom like lightning in a dry field. What could a 7-year-old boy possibly know that would bring a decorated police officer, Sergeant Daniel Grayson, to trial? Everyone had assumed this was an open-and-shut case of grief-stricken confusion. But now, the story they thought they knew was unraveling. The town of Marlow, Georgia, a place that prided itself on quaint southern charm and neighborly warmth, was about to confront a truth darker than anyone had imagined. Ethan wasn't just a child anymore. In that moment, he was the bearer of a truth so heavy it could crush reputations, careers, even the very institutions people trusted most. And he wasn't backing down. Ethan Kincaid had always been a quiet boy. He loved dinosaurs, T-Rexes especially, and spent long afternoons building elaborate cardboard forts in the living room. He wasn't the kind of kid who made waves. His world had always been small. His mom, their scruffy little dog Pepper, and the cozy one-story house on Maple Lane that smelled like lavender and cinnamon. But that world had shattered one rainy Friday night. His mom, Rachel Kincaid, never came home. Ethan waited at the window until well past bedtime, his little nose pressed against the cold glass. The street outside was wet and silent. The glow of street lamps cast halos on the slick pavement. Then headlights appeared. But it wasn't her car. It was a patrol vehicle. The door opened, and Sergeant Daniel Grayson stepped out, the officer who always waved to Ethan from his cruiser, who once gave him a sticker that said Junior Deputy. But this time, there was no smile. No wave. Just a grave expression and a voice too calm to feel real. "Your mom's been in an accident," he'd said. "She didn't make it." Ethan didn't cry. Not right away. He simply stared. Because even in that moment, something felt wrong. There was a dark smudge on Grayson's uniform, something that looked a lot like blood. His hand shook ever so slightly, and his eyes didn't meet Ethan's. And then there were the words his mom had whispered to him just 3 days before. "If anything happens to me, Ethan, don't trust anyone. Not even the police." Those words echoed in his mind now as he stood in the witness box, staring down the man she had warned him about. After Rachel's death, things spiraled quickly. The police ruled it a car accident, slick roads, poor visibility, a tragic mishap. Case closed. But Ethan couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat. He'd wake up in the middle of the night screaming. His drawings, once filled with sunny skies and smiling stick figures, turned dark and chaotic. A week after the funeral, his teacher, Mrs. Larson, pulled his grandmother aside. "He drew this," she said, holding up a piece of paper. On it was a crude but unmistakable image, a woman lying on the ground, a man in a police uniform standing over her, and a car with headlights like glaring eyes. In Ethan's shaky handwriting were the words, "He made her go away." Ethan's grandmother, Janice Kincaid, was a retired nurse with silver-streaked hair and eyes that didn't miss a thing. She wasn't one to jump to conclusions, but she wasn't about to dismiss her grandson's warning either. She hired an attorney. Not just any attorney, Clara Prescott, a fierce, uncompromising defense lawyer known for taking on impossible cases. She'd been burned before by corruption, and something about Ethan's story struck a nerve. Clara dove in headfirst. The town didn't want to believe it. A beloved officer? Accused by a grieving child? The prosecution claimed Ethan was traumatized, confused, creating false memories to cope with loss. The department closed ranks. The chief issued a press statement declaring full confidence in Grayson's innocence. But Clara knew there had to be more. And then Ethan said something that changed everything. "I have something," he told her one evening, his small voice cutting through the gloom of Janice's living room. He reached into the pocket of his jacket and pulled out a crumpled receipt. It was from a gas station, dated the night his mother died. "She gave it to me," Ethan said. "She told me, if anything happened to her, give it to someone who could help." Scrawled on the back, in his mother's handwriting, was a license plate number. It matched Daniel Grayson's personal vehicle. The receipt was entered into evidence. Suddenly, the case wasn't just a child's accusation. It was a breadcrumb trail leading directly to the man sitting in the defendant's seat. The prosecution doubled down. The gas station receipt could have been planted. A coincidence. Circumstantial. But Clara pressed on. She subpoenaed security footage from the gas station. At first, it seemed like a dead end, corrupt data, bad angles, blurry images. But after painstaking review, a frame emerged. Rachel Kincaid and Daniel Grayson arguing outside the station, her hands gesturing wildly, his stance aggressive. It was time-stamped just 2 hours before her death. Still, it wasn't enough. They needed more. So Clara brought Ethan back to the stand. He was braver this time. He spoke of the night clearly, how he waited at the window, how Grayson arrived alone, how there was blood on his sleeve. He told the court how his mom had been scared lately, locking the doors, jumping at shadows. How she told him about money that had gone missing, and how she said someone was watching her. "Who?" Clara asked. Ethan hesitated, then answered, "Officer Grayson." The courtroom froze. Grayson's attorney called it nonsense. Fabrication. But the tide was turning. Then came the final blow. Clara turned to Grayson during cross-examination. "Sergeant Grayson, were you involved in the handling of narcotics evidence from the June 14th bust?" "Yes," he said. "Did you log all seized cash as required?" "Yes." Clara held up a copy of the evidence inventory. "You sure about that?" She turned to the projector screen. There it was, Rachel Kincaid's name, listed as the technician who filed the discrepancy report 3 days before her death. Grayson's face went white. On the last day of the trial, Ethan stood one final time. He looked directly at Grayson. "You hurt my mom," he said, "and I'm not scared of you anymore." Silence. Then Clara's voice broke through. "Sergeant Grayson, why did you kill Rachel Kincaid?" Grayson's composure cracked. His voice was a growl, low and bitter. "She was going to ruin me," he spat. "She found out about the money, the schemes, the whole operation. She threatened to report me. I panicked." He shook his head, lips curling. "We argued. She fell. It was an accident. I couldn't let it get out. I thought I could cover it up." "You didn't just cover it up," Clara said. "You manipulated a child. You tried to silence him." Grayson's gaze flickered to Ethan. He didn't speak again. The jury deliberated for 6 hours. When they returned, the tension in the room was unbearable. The foreman stood. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Daniel Grayson, guilty of obstruction of justice and manslaughter in the death of Rachel Kincaid." A wave of emotion rippled through the chamber. Some wept. Others whispered. Grayson's shoulders sagged as the bailiff stepped forward. The judge's voice was grave. "Sergeant Grayson, you took an oath to serve and protect. Instead, you betrayed the badge and took a life. You were hereby sentenced to 15 years in state prison with no possibility of parole." As the gavel came down, Ethan sat frozen. Then Janice wrapped an arm around him, and he let the tears fall. He had done what he came to do. It hadn't brought his mother back, but it had brought the truth into the light. And somewhere, deep in his heart, he knew she was proud.